We're getting about a 50-minute to an hour late start. Buses are usually late, but not more than about 5-10 minutes. Very nice new bus. Just some town we're passing through. We're now at the ocean. This is Concha's 5-bed hostel room, which is quite large, spacious, has 3 single beds, which is very nice, very comfortable for reading and so forth. I'm going to stay right here because it's next to the window, but notice how nicely decorated it is in a simple way. I don't know whether she owns it or not yet. I'll take you out to the balcony. And while it's still an ugly day, it's stopped raining for a couple of minutes. There's the wall of the castle in the old town. I'll go up to that shortly. Right a little ways. This is the 5-bed hostel, or dormitory rather. Very nice for me because nobody else is here. But it'd be very nice, probably one of the most comfortable ones I've been in because it's so spacious. Here's my bed. Little hostel is right down there. This is the 3rd gate, including the main gate from the bus stop. There's a smaller one down there a ways. So just to orientate, we go in right where it says 26. Where the X is where my hostel is. And then we'll roam up and then go to the right first. As Steve says, there's nothing much to this town except to walk down through the main drag. So we'll do that and wind around, ultimately going over to somewhere over here where the aqueduct is that I want to see. Here we're looking at the top of the wall just. So I've just passed through the gate and oratory of Our Lady of Grace. You can see where the portcullis slides up and down in that slot, and probably those other slots there were for the hardware that controlled all of that. And this is the chapel, apparently built right into this tower. Remember that in towns like this, it's absolutely critical to use all the space you can, including climbing higher and higher. Steve talks about these whitewashed houses with the blue and gold striping on their corners. I'll have to look at that again, see if he says why. Here's one of the houses that has an archway through it, or under it I should say. Up with building. Casa dos Frutos Divinos. House, it's a guest house of the divine fruits. Alrighty. There are lots of guest houses, I'm sure. They cost about 60 to 100. 50 sometimes. My room, when I'm the only one in it tonight, is 20. I like that. Look at this for putting flower pots. How simple that is. I could do it myself if I had that inclination. In this town, you're immediately struck in this old town by the authenticity of it, the quaintness of it, the colors, everything about it's pretty and interesting. As usual, I'll take the opportunity wherever possible to go up side streets to see what we can see. And these old doors suggest that what might have been used as residences at one time and access are now closed off and are used probably internally from the house above. Although it looks like some of that may be, looks like the whole thing may be abandoned. Those broken windows aren't any kind of indicator, but there are still plants, so who knows. So not far from the battlements above us that we're working our way up to, and along the side there, we've come to a pretty little patio area, or overlook deck, giving us a nice view, if you will, of this town. Trying to get a shot without a wet lens, and it's god dang near impossible. Gives us access to the walls. And the warning. The problem with shooting is the wind is coming from the left, almost horizontally, and blowing that mist. So I have to try to develop a strategy for thwarting that. And this ordinary town looks quite pretty when seen from the wall. Here again, I can only attempt to take as full a shot as I can. It's going to be hard to avoid this mist blown. Look at that chimney down there, in the form of a couple of houses, if you will. This is called the Posada do Castelo. I don't know what Posado means, but I assume it's a port or entry point. So we'll walk up behind that. What this was before, if anything other than what it is now, I don't know. It's now a restaurant. And apparently you can rent rooms here too. Don't know if this was some old kind of wine cask or not. Not quite sure what it's made of. Looks like it's made out of metal, but it could well be made out of pottery material or ceramic. There's another posada or gate leading to just the outside, although that does look kind of funky with that bridge down there. Here's some Oriental fellows that asked me a question, but were too impatient to wait for the answer, which I happen to have. Probably going to be my best view of the top of the castle. And here's an attempt in good weather to add some historical character, if you will, in a theatrical way, and perhaps that's exactly what they do, is hold theater productions there of some sort. Here's a beautiful little house, at least the entryway, of course. This, I imagine, is the main street, since it's packed with tourist bus people.
Com as minhas filhas, uma que tinha sobrado e que pronto, eu não ia vender, em menos de 5 minutos conseguiram arrancar 2 ou 3 pétalas e pronto.
It's uniquely painted ceiling. Otherwise it's a barrel vault. Looks like it's made of wood. But of course, the overwhelming magnificence of this church may well be the walls of tile. We'll get a closer look at those in a moment. Notice, this is interesting, this person is holding pincers in her hand, and I have no idea what the gizmo is that she's actually holding. A ring, perhaps. This back wall. Reflections kill a lot of the look. This is on the left aisle. It's a beautiful church in the sense of decoration, with the tile covering the walls up the side of the aisles, and then the barrel vaults being all painted, it looks like, and then further some kind of embellishment of painted panels up on top here. I'm not sure that we can see anything, but look, it's a pretty little, looks like, I guess you'd call it a chapel. But it may also be a crypt, or contain the remains there in that coffin. Completely, of course, surrounded by these large graphic tiles. And notice on the back wall of this aisle how huge paintings are framed by the tile. Here we can see rather simple painting of this barrel vault and the entrance of the church. I forget what that's called, the narthex maybe. And this whole entry wall and the interior in the tile. Here what looks to be an old, authentic, original, whatever that means, water fountain or source of water for the community at this point. I climbed up from the tourist street to my right just in the hopes I could find some shots that were interesting. And I'll climb a little farther in the hopes that there continues to be something pretty to look at. Looks like an abandoned building there. Interesting. It seems like it'd be fun to live in a place like this, but in reality, it'd be a lot of work. No place to put your car. You have to walk and carry everything. Unless you can find a place to park. Consider life at this house adjacent to the wall. It must be an expensive property to have this huge garden all to itself. Huge relative to this little town, walled town, extremely valuable property, I would think. Could be wrong. Wouldn't this be pretty to spend some time in, or to have a drink in if it were a pleasant day in that little shop were open, which it's not, understandably. Another church to look at. And the surrounding area is pretty. We're not that far from the ocean. In part, that's why we have the weather we have. And notice that this abandoned property seems to have an equally large, if not larger, garden area. Probably overgrown, but looking pretty nice even now. Imagine if you had the money to restore it. Would they allow you to put a higher floor on it? Or would you be prevented because it might somehow block the people behind you a bit? Carefully staying one block up from the tourist street, I find this connection between two buildings. It's not large enough to be anything much more than a hallway. Here's some kind of coat of arms over what looks to have been once a door, although it's not even a regular door. The lintel's offset for some reason. That's curious. This is Casa Memoria, Albino de Obidos, Casa Murisaca. And here I stand at a square, a small square, that might have been a square for centuries with the people that lived in these houses. I don't know if this is a grinding stone or a well. No? I'm not sure that it's either. Without actually realizing it, I'm just walked down and come back up to the other entrance to that little park I was in. Here seeing more abandoned building. Wonder why. But here one looks like it's quite lively. Casa de Roquedo. This pretty little wall. Notice how it's got a little tile covering above that window. But look at this pretty bush. This is what stopped me. With flowers of different colors within the same group of, or cluster of flowers. And it may even include those purple berries. A nice church in its simplicity of interior design. This appears to be either a small church or just a chapel, but in at least the Gothic design, at least you have the pretty archwork. I'm not sure that almost looks like a barrel, but it's too close, too tight for me to describe it other than just Gothic. Maybe it was just a cryptotorium or something. This is the small church I just looked inside of. And this is the larger church we looked at a few moments ago. The one I said was pretty for its simplicity. It looks like there were an earlier facade than the one we're seeing here, alluded to by that little scrap on the right. This older church is interesting in that it has a couple of sarcophaguses parked outside. There. There's another little church outside the wall down the street from my hostel. Here we are outside of a 4-star hotel. They're looking at me very cautiously. There's the middle entrance of the 3 entrances outside the bus stop, which includes the main entrance. And there's a water fountain from the past time up to leave. So you're there in the distances. Okay, here's a relatively modest, small arched, not very tall aqueduct, but why should it be more if it doesn't have to be? So we'll wander down there just for the fun of it and look at the other end. Here we're looking at the lowest, or the shortest height, which means it's on a hill, but it also gives us an idea of what this elevation is. So somewhere right over there, I would think would be the spring, although it's possible it came from higher up and just needed no more elevation once it came off that hill. This was not a Roman one. This was built in the 16th century, I believe, to bring water from a small spring. And I would rather imagine that arch down there probably was built to accommodate that road. Whether at the same time the aqueduct was built or a later time, I don't know. Just to take a closer look, notice the brick arching. And this probably came from a Roman design. You would think they would have used it. They had examples of it not that far away. And then the center portion of the post looks like it's made of rubble rock. I don't think it was made in a form, but it could have been. There may just be a far more discreet rock and mortar design in there, covered by a later century's basically cement. And here there appears to be consistent base design of bigger rocks with mortar. This looks to be relatively new, although it is a pretty angles of the face of the inside of the arch, if you will. Notice that it's a twisting face. Here a much wider and thicker post construction, and it's repeated every 100 feet or so, or whatever that distance is, all the way down the line as a overall support for the wall, which looks from here as though right in this portion it's leaning towards me. Maybe I'll walk on the other side. Here we get to look inside. Whether this was the original construction, I don't know, but if it was, then it's this narrow brick, a Roman type of brick it looks like. Some placed vertically, and now they all placed vertically actually. So this might be the internal construction.